We talked about the splash screen in an earlier video, but it was a sort of a general overall picture of what it can do. There's a lot of little minor things in here that this video is going to describe. There are a couple of interesting things you can do with these icons. For instance, you can make them invisible. If I double click up here on this title, I can click this invisible checkbox, and when I save this away and then restart it, you'll see that they aren't there. There's a little outline, but the icons themselves aren't there. There's two ways to get them back. One way is to simply double click it again and uncheck the invisible mark. But the other way is if you hold down the left shift key when you're starting up the program, you'll see that everything comes back to the initial conditions. These icons can also be moved. It's a little difficult, but if you move the mouse this little teeny space between the lines there and hold down your left mouse key, then you can move them around. The only thing is you can't move them on top of something that already exists. If you want to get it back, again, you can hold down the left shift key, or if you look at this little button up here, the default button, if you click it and then make the screen go down and then restart it, you'll see that everything is back where it's supposed to be. Same as holding the left shift key, except you do it as you close out the program rather than as you start it up. You'll notice that there's a couple of extra icons down here that are normally hidden. You can grab the bottom of this thing and move it up and down, and when you close the program, it will come back the same way. I normally only show the first 3 rows, and in fact in my smaller dealerships I only show the first 2 rows because they don't have any salesmen to worry about. But anyway, there are 2 extra functions that aren't used very often, and they will be described in their own videos. There's a few other things on this screen that are not immediately obvious. One is this little thing up here that shows where the program was launched from and what the database name is, in this case UC2000, which is my test database. This thing down here shows when was the program last recompiled. There's one other control on this screen, and that is this checkbox. If you check it and you launch a display, then the splash screen will minimize itself. If it is unchecked and you launch something, the splash screen will stay in the background. I mentioned in the previous video that all the documentation exists. One can look at the documentation by selecting a form that you want to look at and then clicking this User Guides button. The documentation will show up as a PDF in Acrobat. Over here, there are other things that you can look at also. For instance, all of the government forms that we have in the system can be looked at. Here's the buyer certificate for out-of-state delivery. There are government documents that you can look at. For instance, here's the Washington State Dealer Manual. There are system things that most people wouldn't want to see, but if you want to install the system, as an example, here are the instructions on how to install a new Carousel system or to update one of your workstations.